All right, we are live. Hello, Shelby.
Hi. Our Tennessee fan may or may not join us, so be prepared for those who listen already know Matt. Matt's going to be an adventure this week. And we're lucky Kate's not here because Kate and Matt can get into it a little bit.
I imagine one of those has had more fun over the past 17 years than the other.
Yeah, just a little bit. Of course, Kate and I and Matt haven't been alive all that long. We're what? I'm 26. I'll be 27. Kate's about the same age. I don't know how old Matt is, but I'm assuming he's around the same. So like all they know is the little bit. We don't know all
Yeah,
the long
you
history.
know, I'm 31, so I missed a lot of the animosity from the 90s. I mean, growing up in Florida, most of mine is directed towards FSU. So, by the time I've been old enough to have a concrete understanding of Tennessee, there's not really much to hate because 16 out of 17 does that to you.
Alabama's that's probably how Alabama feels too.
I mean, it always bugs me because Auburn is the closest team to Florida, and had Tennessee been willing to move off of their rivalry with Bama, Auburn would be in the SEC East, Missouri would be in the SEC West. But instead, Tennessee wanted to just continue getting their teeth kicked in every year. And Auburn they weren't going to make Auburn choose between the Iron Bowl and the rivalry with Georgia. Why would they? So now we get to see, Tennessee with their rivalry with Vandy. I learned last night that that's number one or number two for some Tennessee fans. That's where their program is, but they just don't realize it.
Okay, I feel like I should be concerned.
Apparently it's a historical rivalry. Yeah, that's
There's a lot of historical rivalries, but
yeah,
I
it's
don't. That's not one that I think of when I think of historic rivalries.
I guess if you live in the state, I can understand it, but after about 1940, it's been pretty one-sided for everybody else in the SEC. Tennessee's actually 5-5 against them this decade. So while everybody else laughs at Vandy, Tennessee still struggles.
We won. What was it 2020 that we won? Only by 5 points against Vandy. So then when we only beat Sam Houston 31-0, people were like, "Oh, it's the same as 2020," and I'm like, "No, Haynes King's just not a good quarterback."
Oh, yeah. I mean, at least 20. Would you rather have 2020 now after the way the season has unfolded so far?
I don't know if you would have told me that we would have started the season 2-1. I would have been like, "Okay, we lost to Miami." Okay, no, that's not what happened.
Yeah, no, I feel you. I'm in the exact same boat. If you had told me we were 2-1, it's like, oh, okay, Utah got us at home, and then we really, let me give Kentucky respect here. They got a good team, and if you told me we were 2-1, then I would have assumed it was either 90% Utah, 10% Kentucky. But the way that we've lost, that's the scary part.
Yeah, I put it on here. Was it Anthony Richardson won the Kenny Trail Award, but he hasn't been found passed out in a bush. So little things.
On that topic, let me discuss my boy a little bit here. I am a huge fan of Anthony Richardson. In terms of college football players, you get, and this is coming from a Florida fan who has seen, the Antonio Callaways and the Aaron Hernandezes and the Will Hills of the world come through. Um, the trade-off between talent and doing things the right way off the football field, some teams, some coaches, some player, that's a tough thing to balance for a lot of players and a lot of teams. Anthony Richardson is one of the nicest, like most humble, soft-spoken dudes that you will ever see. And being from Gainesville, the story around him and there's still time. Don't get me wrong. It's unfortunate that he's had such two terrible games, and we're all hoping that he turns it around and gets back on track and things look better this weekend. But he is just in his head right now, and you can tell it on the field. You can see it on the sidelines. You can see it in his press conferences. After the game, where after Kentucky, he basically just said like he lost confidence. And whenever your quarterback says that, that's just like a shot in the heart. Because
Yeah.
deep down, I hope that Napier's strategy for him is, like a basketball analogy, to where when you have a shooter, let him keep shooting. If Russell Westbrook is 15 out of 40, he got you a triple double. That's good, right? Steph Curry goes 0 for 11 to start a game. You don't tell him to just stop shooting. And eventually they find their stride and they get in rhythm and they get their confidence back. I'm hoping that's the game plan. From what I've seen so far, man, he's more Russell Westbrook than Steph Curry right now, to where he's just shooting.
Brian.
Yeah. But um, the Kenny Trill Award is definitely apt right now.
I had to explain that to my sister because she was like, "Who's Kenny Trill?" And I was like, "Oh goodness." let me sit down and tell you a story about old yesteryear. That was my freshman year, first quarterback post Johnny Manziel.
I attended the University of Florida from 2011 to 2013. So my entire high school years life, I said, I'm going to Florida. We had Urban Meyer. I was going to have the time of my life watching my favorite team dominate.
Nope.
Then the bus champ comes in, and you had Kenny Trill. I had John Brantley and Jeff Driscoll. So it's pain, especially in that 2010 year, watching Cam Newton, who was Tim Tebow's backup and the heir apparent, have one of the best seasons of all time. Yeah, that hurts.
I'm like, this is fine.
Yeah, it's like
it's fine.
Kyler Murray was at Texas A&M before Oklahoma, right? Yeah. So you guys have seen that song and dance play out to where.
But see, here's the thing with Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray went to A&M because Kyler Murray's daddy went to A&M. So he thought he had some kind of pull at A&M because daddy was special at A&M. That's not what happened. His dad would show up to practice and say, "Why are these receivers on the field with my son?"
Yikes.
So Kevin Sullivan was like, "Look, bro, we're not doing this. Like, you can't show up to my practice and act like you run shit. Sorry, you can't." So
the Bo Nix experience there.
Yep. But of course, Kyle Allen, that was another adventure. That was a failed experiment.
He's still in the NFL though, isn't he? Doesn't he play for the Commanders, I think, or the Panthers? Man, Kyle Allen is one of those guys that every time it'll be like week 12 of the NFL season, and I'll be watching ESPN, and I'll see his name go across the ticker, and in my mind, I'm like, wow, I remember when Texas A&M had Kyle Allen and Kyler Murray, and they had so many quarterbacks; they were just unstoppable. And then I'm like, wait, I thought he sucked there. Didn't he have? He had like 2 good games, and then maybe I'm getting my Texas A&M quarterback. Yeah,
he threw 6 interceptions or some shit like that against Alabama. That was an adventure. Let's see, Kyler. I don't even remember when Kyler played. I know he played. I just don't remember what games it was. I don't know. It was that all the quarterbacks jumbled together. All I know is that whenever that like your favorite football memory thing post went through Twitter, Jake Hubenet posted the 3 best friends any man could have, and it was him and Kyler Murray and Kyle Allen and Kenny Hill, and I was like, Jake. Jake Hubenek, no, you can't do us like that.
Uh, I mean, yeah, maybe I'm ignorant on how other teams have had their transfer quarterbacks pan out. But as far as I'm aware, Florida and Texas A&M have to be the two schools that have seen their quarterbacks transfer and then go on to be significantly more successful. Like, you guys have had a fair amount from what I can remember. We've had a fair amount. It's always rough seeing those guys go on and carry a team to a dub, especially when your quarterback is struggling.
Yep. I'm just glad that speaking of struggling quarterbacks, I don't have to watch Haynes King anymore.
So are you 100% on the Max Johnson train?
I wouldn't say I'm on the train. I'm on the anybody but Haynes King train.
Gotcha.
I don't know. We'll see this week how much on the Max Johnson train we all are. Because the second he messes up, everyone's gonna call for Connor.
I mean, we've talked about it before. So it's weird because our situations are a little different. Jimbo's a lot more established than Napier is. So I'm fully into the let's put whoever we got on the field and see what happens. And maybe not so much Anthony Richardson at the quarterback, but he's getting close to that point. But for pretty much every other position, it's like freshman, sophomore, whatever, put them on the field and let's see what they can do. For
Honest.
you guys, it's almost like with the class you guys just brought in, just do a hard reset. Just throw 2022 or out the window and let these kids go and play. I mean, obviously you don't want to see them, drag racing in a parking garage or anything like that. But maybe on the field, maybe they can channel that energy into something a little bit more productive and get on the field. But I know you had pretty high expectations, and obviously you guys can still attain those. But to me, you're breaking in a new quarterback, you're breaking in, not a new system, but you guys have a lot of freshmen that are going to be difference makers than, probably next year. 2022 could have just been a development year, but I don't think losing to App State was on the menu. And for us, even though it's a transition year, letting USF almost beat you ain't on the menu. Yeah.
See, then I look at teams like Arkansas. I'm like, you almost lost to Missouri State. I don't care that you had a great fourth quarter and came back and won 38-27. I don't care. You almost lost.
Yep. I mean, like I said, I feel like there's really 5 teams in the country that are talented and disciplined and good enough that other smaller, crappier teams can't punch up and have the game of their life and beat them. I mean, I don't care how USF or Appalachian State, they could play the game of their lives and they're not beating Georgia, Bama, Clemson, Ohio State. I mean, it's not going to happen. Everybody else, though, when Tennessee fans or Arkansas, or whoever, Ole Miss fans are saying, oh, we wouldn't let those teams do that to us. At a certain point, you have a big enough sample size to where you can point to Marshall over Notre Dame. You can point to App State over Texas, USF almost over Florida. North Dakota State almost knocking off Iowa. I mean, there's enough samples that we can point to and say, look, you sleep on these teams and they're going to come in and punch you in the mouth, and before you know it, you might be in a dogfight. And then you start talking about conference matchups. I'm sorry, I don't see any other team in the SEC aside from Bama and Georgia that any other team in the SEC couldn't beat. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like those 2 teams, the only 2 teams I can see beating Bama and Georgia are each other. Obviously, they something terrible could happen, and that's always a possibility. But realistically, those are the only 2 teams who are playing well enough and talented enough to be able to compete with each other right now. Doesn't mean Texas A&M couldn't do it, or Florida or Tennessee, whoever. But I feel like this has already been a year where there's just been chaos and parity, Maybe not at the top where those top 5 teams are, but throughout the rest of the top 20, I couldn't tell you who the next 20 best teams are right now.
I feel like I don't know what I was gonna say now. My brain just went like fart. My brain was like, "You have a great point. You should share it." And now it's gone.
It'll come
Whatever
back
it
to
was,
me.
it's gone. Must not have been that important. All right, let's see. If we go down the line, we start with Alabama and Vanderbilt, which we all know who's going to win that game, and it won't be pretty.
Yeah. The spread is 40.5. Yeah, I would be surprised if Vandy covers that. I'm not a betting man. I just like to look at them and see what Vegas thinks. Bama is, they're Bama. That Texas game, I think that was a lot more of the exception than the rule, and I think, nay, hope that woke Bama up because, unfortunately, my team can't knock off Georgia. But yet again, I am asking you to beat Georgia, Alabama, because I can't deal with a Georgia repeat.
Oh, Lord. We were asking one thing. So the Aggies can't knock off Alabama again then?
No, you could. When I'm not talking about conference games. It's possible for sure. I'm more of talking about an App State coming in. Like, even if Bama was sleepwalking, like next year, the next couple of years, I think you guys will be at a talent level to where even if you sleepwalk, App State's not going to be able to punch up and get you. Like, you guys are going to outsize, outspeed. It might not be pretty, but you guys are accumulating enough talent that in the coming years, even if App State plays the game of their life, they won't knock you guys off. This season, obviously, you aren't there yet, but Bama and Georgia are there. So those types of teams, even if they played a great game, I don't see them knocking Georgia and Bama off. Realistically, I think Texas A&M, Florida, LSU, maybe put Tennessee's offense in there. Tennessee's one of those teams to where if Bama or Georgia came in and fumbled or turned the ball over or had, something goes wrong, Tennessee's offense is one of those that they could score a touchdown. You turn around and 2 plays later throw a pick, and then the next play they score a touchdown. And in the span of 60 seconds, they've put up 14 points on you. Even against Bama and Georgia, if those things happen, you're going to be in a dogfight. Texas A&M, you guys don't quite have that explosive offense, so you would have to consistently line up and out physical and out technique and out talent Georgia and Bama. And you did it last year, so obviously you could do it again. If we're talking probabilistic, 95% chance, let's talk about standard deviations here. Yes, you guys would, those 2 teams are 2 standard deviations away from pretty much everybody else in the SEC. That doesn't mean that nobody else could get them, but I think that, you have Bama and Georgia at 2 standard deviations, and then you have about 8 teams, really there's about 4 or 5 teams, and then you have your Ole Misses and Mississippi States who have really creative coaches and offenses who, if you're not careful, they can get you. And then maybe put Arkansas in that, who's just a good team. But then
Kentucky's
Tech,
defense there.
yeah, Kentucky's defense, yeah. So it's just a mix, right? To where you have these 2 teams that are clearly better than the rest of the teams, and then you have about 8 teams that are, however you want to stagger them, kind of in a tier to where if Florida played Ole Miss right now, Ole Miss would probably be favored and would have a very good chance to beat us. If Florida played Vanderbilt right now, we would probably be 2 touchdown favorites. But all of those, aside from maybe Vandy, I'd probably put Missouri in there,
Auburn.
uh, Auburn, and South Carolina. I think those 4 teams, they don't have enough bullets. Like can they beat you? Sure. But if it turns into a slugfest or a shootout, they're going to be the ones who are going to be running out. And then, you have the other 8 teams, everybody else basically, who on any given Saturday could beat each other. And then you have Georgia and Bama, who they're going to handle the bottom 4. The other 8 teams are going to have to play an exceptional game to be able to beat them. And then you're probably going to need a little bit of Bama or Georgia misfortune to be able to pull it off. I would include Texas A&M probably at the top of that 8-team list. And right now, I'd probably put Florida towards the bottom. I think it's just those 8 teams in the middle there. There's so much variance on a given Saturday from all of them. You guys, not to keep going back to App State because whatever, but obviously that was a aberration. Your guys' post-game win expectancy was like 75%. You had bad luck. You had bad things happen to you. It just broke the wrong way for you guys in that game. Our post-game win expectancy against Utah was 67%. So when people say, "Oh, we got lucky," well, not really. App State, they got lucky. But A&M should be a team that you need more than luck to beat. And, right now you guys aren't there yet. But that's why I think that you guys should just throw out the play, just say, screw it, hard reset, get these freshmen on the field, take their lumps. You guys could beat these teams. Sure. You guys just played a pretty good Miami team. But, the odds of you winning SEC or national title this year, pretty small. The odds of you doing it next year, much, much better. Improve those odds. It's kind of like the NFL. We're kind of getting to that point to where teams tank in the NFL. I don't think tanking is really a good strategy in college football because recruiting is so important. But at a certain point, you got to look at your roster and say, is Max Johnson or Haynes King going to win us anything important here? Every snap these guys take, are we getting closer to winning a title versus Connor Weigman? Right? Are we getting closer to beating Ole Miss? Sure. Max Johnson, more comfortable in our system, is going to beat Arkansas or Ole Miss or whoever. Are we getting closer to beating Georgia and Alabama with Max Johnson? Not really. Now Connor Weigman's a guy who, if he hits his peak, and we kind of already know what Max Johnson's peak is, if Connor Weigman hits his peak, now you got something cooking. If Evan Stewart and Walter Nolan, if those guys start hitting and developing and proving to be who we think they are, now you got something going. That, and I view Florida similarly, to where we have 6-year seniors who we've seen play, like we know what they are. And every time they miss a tackle, it's like, why are they even on the field at this point? And I get it. You're playing to win the game. You're trying to put your best players out there. But at a certain point, when do you look yourself in the mirror and say, you know what? Let's just get ready for next year. And it's a tough call for college football because you never want to be in those years.
I tell you right now, I love Walter Nolan. Apparently, during the rain delay at the Sam Houston game, they had players in the stands. Like, they went out into the stands and said hello to fans and gave things out and such. And everybody came back, and Walter was just chilling with fans, and somebody to come out and go, Walter, like, we're going. And he's like, oh, I was chilling. I was having fun, making friends.
How much has he played this year?
He's been hurt, so he'll be back.
Gotcha.
Week 1, got hurt, and then he'll be back this week.
Gotcha.
And then Evan Stewart, Denver Harris, Chris Marshall, and oh my gosh, who was is that it or was there
Bowie.
Bowie Smoke? Yep. Well, I'll be back this week. Apparently, the team came together. The leadership of the team came together and decided that they were suspended, like Anais and Devon and all them.
That's a very
It was not a coach.
2013 FSU thing to do.
It was not a coach's decision. It was their decision.
I'm pretty sure. Maybe I'm wrong. I can't confirm this, but I'm pretty sure I used to work with a relative of Smoke Bowie and perhaps his mom, but I cannot confirm that.
He seems
If you're
fun.
listening, Smoke Bowie, Maria Bowie, if you're Smoke Bowie's mom, we used to work together.
Smoke Bowie. Yes, that's who listens to this podcast.
Yes, I'm sure he's listening to us talk about
He is the one viewer that we have.
Yeah.
It's Smoke Bowie.
All right, let's go to our next game.
Oh my
this is the big one. Well, one of the big ones, I guess.
This one is always crazy, and it will always be crazy. With a couple of exceptions of blowout years, and even the blowout years, it was close at halftime. The one blowout year I can remember was Trevor Knight's year, and we ran for like a 70-yard touchdown at the end of the first half, and I was like, okay, we're gonna win. Don't worry about it, guys. It's good. Don't worry about it. Otherwise, like 3 overtimes, 2 overtimes, an overtime here, an overtime there. And you're like, we're so much better than this team. Why is this happening? Now we're not better. So there's
I mean, I am, for one, not a believer in Arkansas, honestly. Like, I think Sam Pittman's an awesome coach, and he seems like a really cool dude. When I look at their team, and one of it, or part of it, is their defense. I think Barry Odom's a really good defensive coordinator, but their whole scheme, and Florida's kind of running a variant of it now too, to where it's very bend but don't break. And I hate defenses like that, to where it's like you're kind of constantly sitting on your back foot and you let them get down to the red zone, and then you give up a 70-yard drive and all the momentum, and let the offense really get their scheme and system going, and then you get to the red zone and hope to stop them. I don't know. I don't like defenses like that. And we kind of talked about Kendall Briles last time. So kind of
opinions.
Yeah, just it's a combination of coaches aside from the head coach, a combination of coordinators and schemes that I'm kind of indifferent towards. I like Dargan, so when they're not playing a team I care about, I kind of want to see Arkansas win just so my boy Dargan can be happy. At the same time, I think it's hilarious that Arkansas almost lost to Southeast Missouri State or Missouri State or whatever it was, and then I can't even look at their logo without thinking about Bobby Petrino and that neck brace.
Oh no. All I have about this game is that I can't handle losing it. Like, I can't sit in the stands at Jerry World in my $60 front row seats because Lauren's a student and handle losing this game. And by losing this game, I don't mean on the scoreboard, because if we lose because they are a better team, that's fine. But if we lose because our running game is working and then we abandon it like we did last year, I swear to God.
Yeah, no, I feel that. That's the most frustrating thing, is when you're gashing them on the ground and then all of a sudden your coach is like, we should pass it 3 times in a row now. And it's like, hey, man, we're averaging 8 yards a carry. What if we just continue to do that? And then it's like, oh, no, let's throw it. I mean, I like exciting. I'm a Florida fan. I like run and shoot and the fun and gun. But at the same time, even Steve Spurrier and Urban Meyer knew when to run the ball. And that's something that always frustrates me when you're, at the 45-yard line after getting 3 first downs on the ground, and now you pass it, and then you just kill your drive. So
Isaiah
what's your
literally scored, I think it was like a 60-yard run, and then he didn't touch the ball the rest of the game. And I was like, Jimbo, what? What? I'm sitting here like, enough of the trick plays, run the damn ball.
Yep. So what's your score prediction for
Ooh,
Arkansas TMU?
that's hard. What's the line? 2.5?
Yep, 2.5.
I could see us winning. I could definitely see us winning this game because of our defense, not because of our offense, because our offense is not consistent enough for me to put any money on anything. So I can't give you a specific score just because I don't trust our offense yet, and I haven't seen enough of Max Johnson to know, oh, we can put up 30 points, 20 points, what have you. I've only seen him for one game and the 40-second drive that he beat A&M on last season, which broke my heart, but that's a whole other story.
I can tell you, he carved us up last year. I couldn't believe. I mean, he's a lot more mobile than he looks, especially with Brad Johnson being his dad. Brad Johnson was like the slowest quarterback in the NFL forever. But I'm left-handed, so I'm always partial to left-handed quarterbacks. So I'm happy you guys made the switch. I think that I hope that with another week of practice that he kind of revitalizes your offense, at least for a few more weeks, and then hopefully he forgets the offensive scheme whenever we come into town.
He just forgets everything.
Yeah.
And we'll just let Devon Achane not run anything, and then it'll be fine.
Yep.
I love, though, that LJ Johnson got to score the first touchdown against Miami, that it wasn't Devon. And I was like, look, we're playing other running backs. We remember we have other running backs. Devon, I love you, but he's not the every down back. He's just really fast. Really, really fast.
I will have a completely different opinion of that whenever we get to Florida.
Devon Achane, I love the only good thing about Haynes King is that he is fast. Devon has literally said that they'll run sprints at practice, and he's like, I'll look behind me, and Haynes is right there. And I'm like, hello. Hey, friend. Since when are we this fast? Do you want to join the track team? Maybe that's Haynes' spot, because football might not be it.
Well, maybe he just needs to run, get the triple option going.
God. Poor Haynes.
So what's your score prediction? Give me a prediction. We need something on camera so that we can laugh about it whenever you're right or wrong.
When I'm wrong.
Or right. Hey.
We'll see. What was it? Last year we lost by what? 10?
10, yeah.
10. Yeah. Which makes me sick on many levels. Let's see. We'll go. Let's see. They struggled. They put up 38 against Missouri State, but most of that was in the fourth quarter. And by the fourth quarter, A&M's defense is either gassed or is doing really, really well. So I'm going to go, let's say, I'm going to say low. We're going to go 17-14 A&M.
17-14. Wow.
Low.
What time is the game?
6 at night. Or 7.
Ooh, I am glad that we are making plans if you're expecting a 17-14 game. I cannot sit through a 17-14 Arkansas Texas A&M game.
You don't want to that defense?
I think it's going to be a little bit higher scoring. I'm thinking 31-24 Texas A&M wins.
Ooh, I like when you say Texas A&M wins, so that makes me happy.
Yeah. 31-24. I think that your defense holds them, and Max Johnson does to Arkansas what he did to Florida last year, and he's a little bit more comfortable now that he's taken the reins. I think he's a pretty solid quarterback, and I think he might not be quite as good as KJ Jefferson right now. I do think his ceiling is higher, and he can win you guys some games.
I do enjoy KJ. I'm not gonna lie. Like I'm not an Arkansas fan. I can speak, but I do enjoy KJ. I think he's fun to watch, but he doesn't have Traylon Burks anymore, and Traylon made us look stupid last year, just straight up stupid.
Yeah, he's a monster.
Let's see. We go from Arkansas and A&M to the bottom of the bottom.
Man, I watched that Auburn Penn State game last week, and I wish I hadn't. Like, it was just not good. You know, I've kind of struggled to figure out if I'm putting too much credibility into the one game of Penn State that I have watched, and that was the Penn State Purdue game, to where Purdue was absolutely throttling Penn State. And then for whatever reason, Jeff Brom decided that he didn't know how to finish a game and that he needed to just continue throwing the ball. And Penn State, in my opinion, got exceptionally lucky to win that game at all. And Purdue is not a good team. And I kind of feel that cognitive bias in there, to where it's like, hey, you're putting too much importance on that one game. But at the same time, Auburn looked so bad and Penn State destroyed them. And so by the transitive property, my mind is like, Penn State's barely better than Purdue, and Purdue is bad, but Penn State blew Auburn out, so Auburn must be absolutely ass.
I'm telling you, I put it in the universe in the chat today. I've put it in the universe multiple times. Zachary Calzada comes out of third string, beats Alabama in the Iron Bowl. Prophecy.
That would be one for the storybooks there.
It won't happen because he can't do it. He won't do it again because he doesn't have the supporting cast that he happened to have at A&M, because it's Auburn's different.
How would this game have to go for both coaches to be fired afterwards?
Ooh.
Like, do we need like a 3-2 type of game, and then Harsin and Drinkwitz are both like end zoned like Herm was?
I was about to say, are they gonna get end zone? That's honestly, I had to call my mom and tell her that. She goes, show me that didn't happen. I said, there is video. There is video. It happened. This poor man did not make it to the locker room.
Hey, our AD, he said what must be done eventually should be done immediately. Or maybe it's what should be done eventually must be done immediately.
That sounds right.
So if you know that you're going to fire a coach, if you know you're moving on, pull the plug. I'm pretty surprised that we're seeing them before the first month of the season. Especially guys like Scott Frost, who they were willing to spend $7.5 million more to get him out of the building. But I wish I could be that bad.
Can I be so bad at my job that someone hands me almost $10 million to leave?
That's a special talent that really you only see in college football. Like,
out.
Yeah, I think at one point in time, Florida was paying Muschamp and McElwain's buyouts simultaneously with Mullen in the building. I'm sure if we look through the landscape of college football, we'd probably see a bunch of different teams who are currently actively paying for their coaches from 5 years ago's buyouts, and it's pretty hilarious to see.
I don't even remember if someone had a buyout or if he was just out of his contract. I don't even remember, and I don't even care.
Yeah, he bombed at Arizona too. That's one of those that sometimes a coach gets fired, and I thought maybe it's the Johnny Manziel effect, to where Mullen kind of people are kind of. I kind of view it similarly, to where we had Kyle Pitts and Kyle Trask and Kadarius Toney and a lot of leftovers that Mullen did not recruit or bring into the building, but he adapted and utilized properly. And then you look back in hindsight and you're like, oh, You know what? How was he this good for this year, these couple of years, but then so bad the rest of the time? And then you realize, like, oh, he actually just had a really unique generational player, and it covered up a lot of his problems.
Johnny.
Yeah.
Though Johnny's thing was that he didn't listen to Kevin Sumlin. So whatever Kevin Sumlin told him to do, he obviously did the opposite.
I mean, smart. He got the hardware.
Exactly. I'm
So
really
what?
sad that he's never in the Heisman commercials. Like, I feel like they're missing out on some fun content.
You think so?
I don't know exactly what they would do, but he's
Yeah,
fun.
I feel like Nissan is probably like, you know, Herschel Walker's not in them either for probably a pretty good reason. You know, there's some guys that you go back and look at you know, the Heisman winners, and some of them make sense that they're not included in those commercials. And Johnny Manziel, you know, he might be first and foremost there because you know he did like to have a good time.
He, like I've said before, there are many Aggie fans that were upset that he was inducted into the A&M Hall of Fame. And I was like, did you miss like the 2 years that he was here when we beat Alabama, and like he won a Heisman and he helped us build this pretty stadium that you sit in every Saturday? Like, did you miss
No respect for Johnny Football.
None.
So what's your score prediction for Mizzou Auburn? This this is one I'm definitely not going to watch.
Oh, I'm definitely not going to watch it, nor do I care to watch it. Nor did I care to watch them lose to Penn State. And I don't even remember who they played before that. Missouri, I'm sorry, my sweet friend John, who went to Missouri twice, who couldn't tell you where the baseball stadium is sometimes. I don't know because I don't know enough about these two teams, I'm going to be honest.
That's fair. Yeah, I mean, I watched Auburn this past weekend for what I could tolerate, and I mean, there's just nothing. I mean, Tank Bigsby deserves better than what he's currently getting. I think Brian Harsin is without a doubt out the door. Drink, you know, I mean, he just doesn't move the needle much, but he's also at Missouri to where, you know, they're not really expecting the needle to be moved very much. So I don't know if he'll get another season or not, but Harsin, yeah, Harsin's for sure out the door. I think that Auburn's season is about to go down in flames, and they're looking down the barrel of like a 3-9 type of season. And
well, this is the toilet bowl, is what you're telling me.
Yeah, like Auburn had a chance to, you know, maybe be a little bit ahead of the game. And look at, as much as I hate to say it, but FSU pulling the plug on Willie Taggart, it was funny. Like, we laugh, and you know, there's a reason Willie Taggart's at FAU and not hired at a bigger school to follow that up. I mean, FSU's a top 20 or so, top 30. No, FSU is one of the better programs in the country traditionally, and if you get a job like that, you know, like Texas A&M, you know, Kevin Sumlin didn't go from Texas A&M to Arizona, you know, northern Arizona. He went to the University of Arizona. Are they as good? No, but they're still P5. You know, I mean, he didn't just plummet off the face of the earth. Then you see examples of yeah, he has now. He had that second chance, and now he, you know, no longer does. But you know, like a guy like Scott Frost, the way things went at Nebraska, and I think Nebraska's, I mean, he was pretty dumb for taking that job. I mean, I just don't think in 2022 and going forward, Nebraska is a place that you can really expect to win at ever. You know, the only way I could see Nebraska being prominent again is if they get some kind of NIL stuff together and they're able to offer deals and you know, packages to guys to come and live in Lincoln. And That's just it. I mean, there's just no talent around that university. It's just a very barren wasteland, and having
It's
to go into Texas to and compete with Texas A&M and Texas and Oklahoma and Alabama and Georgia, and then having to go to California and do it, and then convince these kids, hey, I know you grew up here your whole life. I know you're from Houston. You want to come live in the cold for 6 months out of the year and play shitty football? Oh, you
please.
don't? Yeah, it's like, oh, really? Oh, okay. Well, I
We
guess
have
we'll go.
corn.
Yeah, we have corn. Like, look at all this corn everywhere. But, but
I got that corn kid song stuck in my head.
right. Yeah, I mean, I think Harsin and I don't really have a strong enough opinion on Drink. I'm not a fan of him, but in terms of his ability to coach football and where he's trending in his career or whatever, I don't really have an input on that. I think Harsin completely shot his career in the foot by going to Auburn, and he was such an odd choice when they hired him. Not a bad choice. Boise State was successful, but hiring a guy from past the Mississippi River who has never had ties, connections, recruiting, any kind of coordinating, GA, nothing in the Southeast, and expecting him to be able to come in and be successful when he's sandwiched on both sides by Nick Saban and Kirby Smart. That's just a recipe for disaster. Like Auburn, I don't know if Gus Malzahn was on the hot seat for years, and then when they finally decided to can him, they went with somebody who you're just like, why? Like, I don't know. That was just always a head scratcher to me, and he's kind of like the opposite of Ed Orgeron. When LSU hired Ed Orgeron, you're like, I couldn't imagine a better place for Ed Orgeron to be. When Auburn hired Brian Harsin, it's like, how? Like, what search committee, what person made that decision? And I think that we're going to see the end of that experiment. Probably, I think after this game, I think Missouri beats them, and Harsin is fired after this game.
See, every time I think of Ed Orgeron, I think of the fact that A&M is the reason that Les Miles had a job for as long as he did. Because, like, they would be ready to fire Les Miles, and then they'd beat A&M. Like, soundly. And they'd be like, oh, well, we're good. Everything's fine. We're like, okay, sure. All right. Like, they beat Johnny Manziel twice. So everything was fine. I'm like, we are the reason that Les Miles stuck around so long. You're welcome, LSU. Not sure.
All right, give me your score here. Let me hear it.
For Florida, Tennessee.
For Auburn, Missouri.
Oh, I thought so. I don't care enough.
Okay, all right, that's fair. That's fair. I'm going shot in the dark, throwing the dart at a dartboard. I'm going 10-9. Going 10-9. Missouri's backup quarterback throws a touchdown with 24 seconds left to win the game.
Oh, fun! That sounds like a game I should watch. Except I won't.
Yeah, exactly. So let's move on to the big one here. The big one for me, at least.
I'm going to say the one that everybody except me cares. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. I care. I do care. I guess our Tennessee fan doesn't want to. He said he was dropping friends off or players off at home, so I guess he's not joining us tonight. But that's
fair. Yeah. I joined the Big Orange Brethren last night and the Between the Hedges guys to let them, enjoy the scenery of Tennessee fans having hope. This might be the least confident I've felt playing Tennessee in the past 7. Nah. Florida didn't have a losing record from 1979 to 2013. Since then, we had a losing record in 2013, 2017. I'm not including bowl losses because 6-6, you're not a losing record. But 2013, 2017, we had losing records. In both of those years, we still beat Tennessee. So when I look at this game, I always I have no idea what's going to happen. And the fact that it's in Tennessee is the biggest variable to me because I think that Tennessee on paper does not scare me. Now, maybe that sounds dumb. I understand it when you look at the statistics and all that stuff. I've watched Josh Heupel coach since he was at UCF, and the offensive scheme he runs, it if he gets ahead, then it's awesome, and that's where you get to see some of these mind-boggling numbers. If he doesn't get ahead, it's like he just doesn't know how to operate. And we kind of saw it with Mike Leach last week against LSU, and you and I kind of had talked about that. Mississippi State pulled out to like a 13-0 lead, 16-7, something like that. Mississippi State got ahead early, and you're kind of thinking, okay, they're going to put their foot on the gas and kind of take care of this thing. And LSU, they just never went away and kind of chipped away at it. And next thing you know, LSU's up 2 touchdowns, and you see that, and that's what happens. And like I told him last night, if Florida turns the ball over, we might be in, we're going to be in trouble. If we give Tennessee extra possessions and let them run their scheme the way they want to, we're going to have problems. But Tennessee punted 6 times against Pittsburgh. I don't think Florida had 6 possessions against USF, and we still scored 31 points. If Tennessee punts 6 times against Florida, they are not going to win the game. And I don't think it would be particularly close because Florida's offense, I think we're going to be able to run the ball without too much trouble. I think we're going to have at least 200 yards on the ground. The big question and concern, obviously, is Anthony Richardson passing the ball because it looked pretty good against Utah. It looks awful the past 2 weeks. And if he figures it out and figures out how to hit the broadside of a barn, I think we can pull away with it. I mean, I know we're underdogs, and I know Tennessee's look pretty solid. I just looking at who they've played, Akron and Ball State, they don't prepare you to play a top 20 matchup at home. Getting tested by Utah, getting tested by Kentucky, unfortunately getting tested by USF. If Tennessee doesn't get a couple of home runs and doesn't pull away early, make it 14-21-0 or something, we turn the ball over and they kind of take off, I just don't think Tennessee's going to be able to win. Again, I know I'm biased here. It's the name of the show. But
do.
You look at the Tennessee-Florida game last year, you look at Tennessee's game against Georgia, Alabama, Ole Miss. I think Kentucky is the only ranked team that Tennessee beat last year. So that's kind of been their Achilles heel, is when they beat teams that kind of suck, they blow them out. When they beat teams that have as much talent or more talent than them, they get blown out. Maybe this will be the year that things change in that regard, and then it might start with Florida. Nothing about their team strikes fear in my heart. I might be singing a different tune come Saturday. To me, it just feels like they padded their stats against 2 of the worst teams in FBS. And, credit to them because we played one of the worst teams in FBS and eked by, and that's nerve-wracking. I just think that last year we had their number. We had the recipe on how to beat Tennessee. I think that our weakest point is our defensive tackle depth. And Tennessee, they want to throw the ball. Our defensive backs are our strongest position group. Our pass rushers are probably our second strongest group. So if they want to pound it up the middle against our worst group of defensive tackles, that's their recipe to success. I mean, I think if they try and drop back and throw, Hendon Hooker, he might scramble on us and make us pay by being aggressive. But I think that our pass rushers can get pressure, and I think our defensive backs can cover their wide receivers. I mean, I said it last night. I'll say it again. Gators by 2 touchdowns.
There you go.
Minus 10.5 Tennessee, 21.5 point win. No, 24.5 point win, just like last year.
Just like last year. Isn't that how it normally works, though? Is whenever Tennessee is doing well, Florida wins?
Tennessee fans with hope is the most dangerous thing in the SEC. That's how you get golf balls on your field. That's how you get mustard bottles thrown at coaches. Tennessee fans who think that this is their year, the problem is they do that every year. Every year, Tennessee fans think it's their year. Doesn't matter that they get one person drafted. It doesn't matter that their quarterback is almost as old as I am. It doesn't matter to them. Every year is their year, and Tennessee fans with hope. I mean, it's like a crack addict that hasn't had a hit. They think Philip Former and is walking back through that door. So yeah, I Tennessee doesn't scare me. If they win, it's going to be the biggest win their program has had in years. I don't know. If we lose, you're one of a new coach. I mean, you should beat us. Like, we kind of suck, honestly. So I don't think that they're going to win. I think that they're going to be really, really pressing, and I think that Anthony Richardson's going to ball out. Gators by 2 touchdowns.
For your sake, whoo, whoo, and Kate's sake, I hope that happens. Because I need a happy Kate in my world. A happy Matthew Sparks, and if Matt is listening somewhere, or whenever he does listen to this, a happy Matthew Sparks means way more shit talking than I'm prepared for.
I mean, that's their MO. They beat their chest when they blow out Bowling Green or something, and then whenever they lose by 4 touchdowns to an SEC team, it's because the refs gave the game away. Or the Tennessee guys told me that had Hendon Hooker played the entire game last year, and had Joe Milton not turned the ball over so many times last year, they definitely would have beaten us. Now,
Hendon wouldn't have gotten hurt.
Yeah, Hendon Hooker came in with 8.5 minutes left in the first quarter in a 0-0 game. Joe Milton had 0 turnovers in the game, and their defense gave up 38 points. But had Milton not turned the ball over and had Hooker played the whole game, that 24-point deficit would have been made up.
I have questions.
The mind of a Tennessee fan is a dangerous place to be.
I know. I was at the last time A&M played Tennessee was at Kyle Field. That was one of my favorite games as a student. And what was it? Josh Dobbs? Is that their quarterback of that year? I think so. Threw the ball right to Armani Watts. It's like he wanted the game to be over. Like, I was like, hon, what are you doing? What you doing? Do you know that you can still win this? Like, what are you doing?
One of my favorite memes was how there's 2 memes that always stick out to me as a Florida fan. One was Ralph Webb from Vanderbilt. Every single game Florida played Vanderbilt, he absolutely bawled out. Like, he took it personally because he was from Gainesville. And the entire game, the commentators would say, "How did this kid get out of Gainesville? Oh, how did he end up at Vandy when he played right down the road from the University of Florida?" And he'd have like 125 yards. And the game would be like 42-7 or something. And they would just be like, "Ralph Webb, how does this happen?" And the other one was Josh Dobbs being an aerospace engineer. Every single game, 11 times a game, Josh Dobbs would do something, and they would just be like, "Oh, you can tell he has the football IQ. He's an aerospace engineering major." And you're just like, "Okay, and you're like, man.
Cool. No one cares."
Yeah. Didn't catch that the first 10 times you said it.
That is different sport, but is A&M basketball when Alex Caruso played. He was a ball boy for A&M. Grew up in College Station, was a ball boy for the A&M basketball team. And if you watch an A&M basketball broadcast at least 7 times during the game. Alex Caruso was a ball boy at A&M. Did you know that? And we're like, yeah. Yeah, you mentioned
Yep,
it.
caught that.
I caught it. Thanks for letting me know. Like literally the hometown court, like one of the like playing courts for the city is now named after him. So there's that.
That's pretty cool.
Alex Caruso. If you would have told me that out of that team with like Jalen and Alex and Tyler Davis and Admon Gilder and all of them and Alex Caruso would have been the one to make it big. Sure.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. No.
Yeah, I slightly different, but we living in the Panhandle, anytime a kid makes it big as a football or basketball, anytime a kid makes it from this rural area, pretty big news locally. And we had a guy probably about 5 or 7 years ago named Chris Walker from Holmes County. And he was like a 5-star top 10 recruit, committed to Florida, ends up coming to Florida, has like benefits, academic concerns, something misses like the first half of the season. We had like Scotty Lewis and some, Trey Mann. We had a bunch of 5-stars on the team. And you think these are going to be the guys that are going to, make it big. And, Trey Mann still may. Dorian Finney-Smith is the guy who has turned into a star.
As a Dallas Mavericks
I was
fan,
about to say, I guess a Maverick instead of a star, wrong sport. But he's the guy that has turned into the biggest of that bunch, and it's just funny because he was a transfer from Virginia Tech who just happened to find the right spot and has made it work.
love Dorian Finney-Smith. Love him.
All right, so if it's okay with you, you want to kind of breeze through the next batch of games because none of these I feel like are really worth spending any time on.
Let's see. Georgia over Kent State, Kentucky over Northern Illinois, LSU over New Mexico, Ole Miss over Tulsa, Mississippi State over Bowling Green. Done.
Yeah, I can't find anything in that batch of games right there that would concern me. Most interesting one, if I'm just going to throw one out there, I think Kentucky versus Northern Illinois is going to be an interesting one for no reason.
Put up 38 or 28 on Vanderbilt.
Yeah,
but of course that's Vandy.
So kind of, I kind of wanted to talk about the topics that we had. Bedlam.
South Carolina and Charlotte. So South Carolina, there we go. Now we covered everybody. Sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
I didn't want to skip our friends in Carolina.
It's kind of weird when the schedule's so like all over the place like that, where it's like you have 2 or 3 kind of interesting SEC matchups, and then you look at the schedule again and you're like, wow, actually, like
that's it.
Yeah, like 75% of it sucks, but the other 25% is cool. So as someone from Texas, what's your take on Bedlam? I know Texas, Oklahoma. I know you're not really involved in that, but you probably have a little bit more of an interest in those 2 teams than I ever would. What's the sentiment there?
I feel like the end of Bedlam is a really bad look for college football. Like it's the same as the end of the Lone Star Showdown, Shootout, whatever you want to call it, whatever they call A&M in Texas. They change it all the time. I don't care. But like the end of that rivalry was bad for college football because it was a good game year after year after year, and it brought recruits and it brought money and it brings so much to the table. And now Bedlam's going to have the same thing. And the fact that both of these teams are being too proud to play this game is stupid.
Elaborate a little bit for me as a Floridian who is not privy to the ongoings of Texas A&M hatred. Why don't y'all play that? I mean, we play Florida State every year. Georgia plays Georgia Tech. South Carolina plays Clemson. Why can't you guys make that a permanent out-of-conference game? I mean, why? I don't understand it.
So this is what happened. Let me tell you what happened. So Texas won the last game. Texas won in 2011. They don't want to lose. They don't want to let that go. So they were like, no thanks. And then they waited until we had scheduled games and games and games. And they're like, oh, can we play? And we're like, no. When do you want us to get you on the schedule? We've got Miami, we've got Notre Dame. When do you want us to get you on the schedule? So now they're playing the whole, oh, A&M is scared of us. And I'm like, no, not scared of you. You lost to Arkansas and Kansas. Not scared of you. You just didn't want to play because you won the last game and you knew that you would lose if we played again because you got lucky, but it's fine. I'm not bitter. So now we're just waiting until they join the conference and we'll play again. And it's going to be huge because they've already said it's going to be at Kyle.
But it's been 10 years. I don't understand. That seems like
play.
I get where you're coming from, but that seemed like such a Texas A&M answer. Like,
well, no, honestly, it does. It does. But that means I don't know why we haven't gotten them on the schedule at this point. I know it started out as Texas not wanting to do
it. I don't know, but I mean that's my stance on all of it. Really, is I understand where you're coming from with it being bad for football. And there's obviously things that we don't know about yet, how we're going to schedule all these teams, who's going to play whom. The rivalries as we know them are about to be shaken down. I mean, there's just no way we're going to be able to fit all of these teams together and maintain out of conference rivalries, cross divisional rivalries, things like that. I mean, it's just, logistically it's not going to work. And I know that, no offense, but the OG SEC teams will always feel a sense of entitlement to the way their first 80 years of football was played. And and that kind of goes back to the Tennessee Alabama thing, and the Georgia Auburn thing, to where those teams played each other every year. Florida, Tennessee really didn't matter until the 90s. Florida, LSU didn't matter until the 90s. So for the longest time, it was Florida, Auburn, Florida, FSU, Florida, Miami, and obviously Florida, Georgia. But because of realignment, some really I don't say many, but Florida, LSU has turned into an awesome rivalry. And yes, lots of shoe throwing, corn dogs everywhere, jorts as far as the eye can see. But, Florida, Tennessee was kind of the first manufactured rivalry during the first round of realignment. And then, we kind of got Florida, Tennessee and Florida, LSU all at once. But since then, as I look at the landscape, it kind of feels like teams get shafted, if you will. And Florida, to me, is the team that kind of got shafted the hardest, because our permanent cross-divisional rival is the only one who has, number one, wasn't a rival beforehand, and also has won 3 national championships in the 20 years since we've had to play them every year. So, Georgia, Auburn has been around forever. But then you look at, South Carolina got you guys, right? Isn't that their permanent? Kentucky plays Mississippi State. Like you look at the matchups and you're like, wow, okay, that's cool. And it makes for great football, honestly. If we played Oklahoma or Texas every year, right now, I don't care about either one of those teams. I mean, this is maybe going to be slander here. I kind of dislike Oklahoma more than Texas. I really don't care. Mostly because the 2008 national championship, when we beat Oklahoma, that was the first time that I really had an invested interest in Oklahoma. Sam Bradford stole Tim Tebow's Heisman. Tim Tebow had more first place votes than Sam Bradford, but Sam Bradford had more second place votes. So he won because his average was higher or something. Tebow had more first place votes and third place votes, but Sam Bradford had more second place votes. And more first place votes than Tebow had third place votes. It's something like that, to where the scoring caused it to be because Tebow was voted either first or third, and he had more first place votes, but because Bradford was more evenly distributed, he got more points than one. So because of that, don't like him. And then the Cotton Bowl, they kind of whooped our ass. So don't like them for that either.
That's fair.
Texas, we've never really crossed paths, so I don't really have much of a reason to not like them. I do. One of my little college football anecdotes is, the 2005 Rose Bowl. I had basketball practice and came home and watched the first half of that game and fell asleep in the chair. And when I woke up, the game was over. And then for the next month, all I heard was how this was one of the greatest college football games ever played. And in my mind, I'm like, I fell asleep.
Yep, I was asleep, so I don't know. I hate Texas for many reasons, but I hate Oklahoma too. Like, so honestly, like I root for Earthquakes on Red River Weekend.
Yes.
Because I hate both teams equally. But Texas, I hate their fans more than I hate their team.
That's fair.
I could give a shit less about your team because your team hasn't done anything since 2005.
Yeah. No,
yes, if Colt McCoy hadn't gotten hurt, I don't care.
That part right there, the phrase you just uttered might be the biggest contributor as to why I wouldn't like Texas, is if Colt McCoy hadn't got hurt. Well, if a frog had wings, he wouldn't bump his ass, right? That phrase, it just always drives me up the wall because Bama put everybody in a blender. It's just the nature of the game. And, it's the same thing Alabama fans and the Georgia fans love to say it and bring it up, to how Bama fans have said if their wide receivers didn't tear their ACLs, Georgia wouldn't have won the national championship. Maybe.
And played them with both those receivers in one. So that's
maybe not. I don't know. I've seen people asking, if Florida played Utah again, who would win? Who gives a shit? The game's over and we're done with. We're not playing them again. I'm worried about if Florida plays Tennessee, because that game hasn't happened yet and I don't know the outcome. If Florida played Kentucky again, I'd guess it'd be 26-16 and Kentucky would win. You know why? Because that's what happened. People, they concoct these scenarios to make it feel better. And it just, Texas is just one of those teams that I know we talk about Texas A&M doing more or doing less with more. As far as I'm concerned, nobody has done that like Texas has. Texas has put guys in the league. They've gotten top 5 recruiting classes and consistently underperform. Texas A&M may not have won a SEC or national title, but you guys have been close. Maybe not close, but to 2020, you guys were on the door. And you guys have been consistently ranked, so at least you haven't had multiple losing seasons and multiple seasons of finishing unranked and things like that, to where
losing to
Kansas. Losing to Kansas, like that. Although, that one doesn't hold quite as much weight after you get that App State on the schedule.
See, here's the difference. App State is a giant slayer. So, I had this, fear. I was like, we're going to lose to App State because they have notoriously done this to people. They bring people to the brink. So, if we're going to lose to a non-conference team that's not ranked, not, big Power 5, it's going to be App State. I would never, in my wildest dreams right now, think, I'm going to lose to Vanderbilt. And that's what losing to Kansas is like.
Yeah, I don't have a valid argument that App State isn't better than Kansas. I've had FSU fans telling me that we shouldn't even talk about their loss to Jacksonville State because we lost to Georgia Southern 10 years ago. And it's like, dude, what have you done for me lately? App State over Texas A&M's probably the funniest. You guys kind of got lucky, really, because Marshall beating Notre Dame and who was it that beat Nebraska?
Oh gosh, whoever beat Nebraska, that
It
got
was all in the same weekend. Like all of you guys lost in the same weekend, and Notre Dame, they're obviously not a better team, but they're probably a bigger brand, or at least comparable. I know you guys are pretty massive, so Notre Dame losing that probably saved you guys a lot of headlines because
it's Peyton Davis
it's
that have
funny
made
to us, but for the rest of the country, they probably know about Notre Dame losing more.
What makes me laugh is I don't know if you actually watched the A&M game, but like Caden Davis's field goal wasn't even close. Like, dang, what? Like and he's been replaced by a walk-on.
Ooh.
Like I was like they I don't remember this kid's name, but they pulled him out for the first field goal against Miami, and I was like, that is not Caden Davis.
Did you watch the end of the Florida USF game?
I did not. I was at Allen Jackson.
So it was like second and 5 or whatever. Center snapped it under the quarterback's feet. They lost like 15, 20 yards, made it like 3rd and 20 or something. And then the kicker, they ran it like right up the middle, got stopped for a yard. So then they bring out their kick unit, and their snapper, pretty good snap, the holder just drops it, right? So the ball is like perpendicular on the ground like this instead of like this. And the kicker almost made it. Like the kicker got it off of the ground perpendicular, like a soccer ball would be, got it up, and it was like a 48-yard field goal. And he got it. I mean, he probably would have been. He wasn't on target, but it probably would have been good from like 50 plus. So whoever USF's kicker is, I'm really glad that happened because that dude, he's probably going to be in the NFL. Like based off of I mean, every kickoff went out of bounds. Dude was a professional soccer player in Brazil or something. I've never seen a kicker be able to get a ball off the ground like that and almost make it from that distance. Like, I mean, maybe 25 yards. And, it was like a high school type of thing to where you just lay the ball on the ground and tell him to kick it up. And the dude almost drilled it. College kickers are the scariest thing in the world to me. Like,
yep.
Evan McPherson, he will forever be a Gator great because we had terrible kicking. We had Caleb Sturgis, who was an All-American Lou Groza winner. And then we had like 10 years of awful kickers. And then Evan McPherson showed up and was just like our shining light.
Was he the kicker in 2020?
Yeah.
When he got outkicked by Seth Small?
Yeah, he was.
Just checking.
Yeah, thanks for that. That felt really good.
I tell Kate that all the time.
You just had to go there.
Shining light. I remember where I was when that game happened. I was sitting in my parents' living room, and we were like in field goal range, and I was like, oh my god, we're gonna beat Florida. Oh my god. And the kick went up, and I sat there like, please, 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 please. I looked like Seth Small's wife against the Alabama game.
Yeah.
That's my favorite video of the 2021 season is her climbing over that wall. Like she gave zero shits. She's like, we're going. Bye.
Well, he makes them when they matter, right?
I have his autograph on my autographed football jersey because he came to the Frisco Classic when we played for baseball, which A&M shit the bed at. Both still went to Omaha, so it's fine. But they were like, Seth Small's going to be there. Get your stuff autographed. I was like, bet. But the awkward part is his wife was also there, and she was like in pictures. And I was like, why? Why are you here? You're not you didn't make the kick. You didn't do anything.
Come on, everybody wants to get in on the publicity.
He wasn't in my picture because like he invited her. She's like, no, and I was like, thank God, because this is awkward. I don't want to be mean, but let's see. I was looking at the 2023 schedule because I got bored at work during my planning today before my parent-teacher conference, and we got some fun games that don't normally happen. Oh, I didn't add the rematch to this one, but that's okay. We know it is. Texas, Alabama at Alabama. That one, I'm telling you, it's going to be a blowout again this time. It really will be this time. I hope.
Maybe. I'm torn because
wouldn't have gotten hurt, right?
I'm always torn whenever a team like this is playing Bama because it's a bit of a double-edged sword, right? If Texas wins, then they further chipped away at the stranglehold that Bama has. It's the same thing that my same theory that I have towards Georgia and slightly towards Texas A&M. I think that there were contributing factors to your guys' ability to pull in all those recruits, but beating Bama didn't hurt. I feel like Bama is the gold standard, and as long as their losses are one-off, Hugh Freeze getting some lucky bounces, or LSU having one of the greatest teams of all time, there's a bit of a power vacuum that they maintain that obviously I want to break into it. I want to break them away from that. But if we're not going to do it, I don't want anybody else to do it either. So there's a bit of safety in Bama winning. Texas is one of the teams that, if they're able to beat Bama, they have the resources and the capability to insert themselves into that category. So this is a very Florida-centric mindset, right? Like, yes, I want to see Bama lose, but at the same time, I don't want to see other programs get elevated. And that's the conundrum, that it's like, if this team beats Bama, then they're going to be on that pedestal, close to that pedestal, have a hand on it. And unless Florida's hand is one of those hands, I don't want anybody else's hand there, because that just makes it that much more difficult. And Georgia is standing on the pedestal now. Clemson has been there. There's only a handful of teams that really can say they have a place up there. And I don't want anybody else I don't want it to get more crowded until Florida has a chance to get back up there. And Texas is one of those teams that I will be rooting for Bama in that game, because I'm fine seeing Texas stay down forever. Like, send me more Kyle Trasks. Like, don't. There's talent in Texas, and there's dudes in Texas that I want to come to Florida. I don't need Texas hogging them. And there's dudes in Florida like Cedric Baxter. I don't want going to Texas. So Texas staying down, I'm always fine with that. But that's my take on it.
This is your daily reminder that Texas recruited Johnny Manziel to play safety.
Will Muschamp recruited Derrick Henry to play defensive end or linebacker. So, yeah.
They were like, you got any more of them safeties to play quarterback?
It's pretty funny, though. In high school, a lot of quarterbacks play safety. Like, at small schools that don't have 50, 100 players on a team, like all the high schools in my area, the quarterback also plays safety.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I come from the land of Allen High School and McKinney School.
Yeah, you guys have like 8,000 students, and your team has like 120 players on it.
My high school didn't, but my high school quarterback. My high school football team was terrible, but my quarterback still plays the NFL.
Gotcha.
Blau. So, he's making money as a backup. So
can't beat that. All right, so out of these matchups here, I'm assuming Texas at Alabama is the non-conference one you're most intrigued by.
I think BYU was a good one too.
Yeah, that one's going to be interesting. I think Kalani Sitake could be at a different school next year. I wouldn't be surprised if he's at Arizona State.
Well, let's see. Out of
Um,
state, out of conference. LSU Florida is going to be another. LSU Florida State, excuse me, is
how
going to
dare
be an.
you?
I was not reading the whole sentence. LSU Florida State. LSU Florida does happen, but it's not out of the ordinary. Well, things happen out of the ordinary in that game, but like throwing shoes.
Right? Yeah. Thank you for that.
Kate, that I tell Kate every time we talk. I'm like, did you keep your players keep their shoes on this week? Did they keep other people's shoes on this week?
You know, I'm just gonna say
That's
it
okay.
once because I don't want to get into this whole thing. I have seen multiple videos of multiple players throwing a shoe and not getting a penalty for it. Throwing a
Yeah.
shoe, throwing a towel, throwing a glove, throwing some random garment that falls on the ground, and they just throw it. He didn't throw it at anybody. He didn't hit anybody with it. He's a dipshit for doing what he did. There's no denying it. I'm just saying there's also precedent for that not being a penalty.
Somebody threw one of Kellen Mond's shoes. I think it was Mississippi State. Threw one of Kellen Mond's shoes, and one of our offensive linemen decided to run at this player that threw Kellen Mond's shoe because he wanted to protect his quarterback, and we got the penalty.
I'm telling you, inconsistent. If that play had happened in the first quarter, would not have been a penalty.
Nope.
110%. Again, should all of them? This is my take on it. Much like the horns down thing, if this is going to be a penalty, when Kentucky's team goes around chomping, or when Louisville's team goes around doing the tomahawk chop, or when Syracuse throws up the U or throws up the upside down U, those should all be penalties. None of them are. The fact that horns down is a penalty,
It's a joke.
soft, as Kobe Bryant would say.
So,
Texas is the only school I can think of to where doing their hand signal in mockingly is a penalty.
oh yeah.
I can't think of a single other one.
If it transfers to the SEC and it stays a penalty, I swear to God.
I mean, like I said, let them throw up a chomp at our fans or in our stadium one time and not get a penalty for it, and I'm rioting.
Riot.
Yes, I am. It's going to be the horns down memorandum.
If you look up horns down, there are so many good gifts.
My favorites are always the what was the kid's name? Bookie Bradley Hiles, I want to say was his name. He ended up at Nebraska, but he was at Oklahoma first. And he was a cornerback. And in his, he did some, I don't know if it was at Oklahoma or something like that. But in it, he very subtly had his hands, like he was like squatted down and he had his hands kind of like this. And if nobody pointed it out, you wouldn't even notice it, right? Like maybe unless you're a soft ass Texas fan that's looking for it. But in recruiting, there's a lot of people who follow that stuff religiously. And so when that picture surfaced, everybody just knew that he was, because it was pretty much between Florida, Texas, and Oklahoma. And so when that picture came out, everybody was like, yeah, he's going to Oklahoma. Like, there's no way he gives enough shits about Florida to throw that up in his picture if he's not going to Oklahoma. And obviously, he can't go to Texas now because they'll, murder him if he does that.
Literal murder.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, though, I'm over it. And my favorite memory, and it was last season at Texas when we played them in baseball, and Dylan Rock hit the grand slam, hit home plate, and went. I was like, Dylan Rock, love you, stay forever, never leave. And all my Texas friends are like, Dylan can leave. Like,
I've seen enough.
So he's a graduate transfer, and if you've watched any A&M baseball, you know that he's played the most. He's had the most at bats, like ever. because he's been around the block 500 million times. So he's not coming back, if that makes you feel better.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to do a baseball stream whenever we get a little bit closer to the start of the season because O'Sullivan, he's made some decisions that just make you scratch your head, and that's that. We don't have enough time for baseball talk tonight, but
No, we don't.
yeah,
But I will. My only thing I will say is if you would have told me at the beginning of last season after we lost to Penn that we would make it to Omaha, man.
Oh, I'm not sure if you can tell, but my chair has been slowly sliding down, and so
That's why I keep doing this.
as the stream has, I just realized that as I've progressed, I've just slowly sunk down in my chair. But I mean, to me, I feel like that's a natural stopping point there. I mean, my chair has sunk as low as it can go now, and that'll be our timer for our future shows. Whenever my chair has slunk all the way down, we'll know that we have covered all of our bases.
I can't get any lower, guys. Stop tearing me down. All right. Good night, y'all. It's been
good night, everybody.
Our first live stream. We did it. I'm proud.
I'm proud too. Bye.
Everybody, welcome Ethan as our new co-host. Maybe Kate will come back. Maybe she won't.
Yes, I need somebody else to chomp with me, right over left until your elbows burn.
I don't think I've ever heard that in my life.
That's the not song, but the chant.
The way to do it.
Yeah.
Our gig'em starts with from gigging the frogs. That's my Aggie ring. Well, you said gigging the frogs.
Is that a shot at TCU?
That's the whole story. Is that there was I can't think of it. It's like Pinky something. I can't remember what his last name was. Came out one day when we were playing TCU, and he said we're gonna gig those frogs, and it just stuck. So now
I like it.
That's what we say. We say gig them all the time. So it's a shot at TCU, and I can when we have our baseball show, I have some comments about TCU. So.
All right, sounds like a plan. Well, you have a good night. I will talk to you next week.
All right, good night, y'all.
Good night, everybody. Bye.